What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Jerichoholic8704, and I'm here to give you a video on the recent TV deals between WWE and Fox. I know I'm kind of late to this party, but I figured, better late than never. That's pretty much my motto with this channel. But I figured, I'd just come up here and give my thoughts on Smackdown moving to Fox and what this means for WWE going forward and how they're going to, market their programming and all that shit. So basically, breaking this down, I don't know all the details, and I'm really bad with numbers and shit like that. So I really don't want to look at the statistics. I'm more looking at the big picture because that's just how I think. But, SmackDown moving to Fox, obviously this is a huge power play. Obviously Fox is way more valuable to WWE and any really, company that, produces programming for television. Fox is 10 times more, likable than something like USA. Not knocking them, it's just the truth. Fox, this is national broadcasting. And the fact that, SmackDown's going to have ads on NFL games and MLB games and all the other big sporting events is, it's pretty great for WWE. They're going to get a lot of money on this. They're going to get a lot of attention. That being said, because they're going to get so much more attention, it's really up to them to hold up their end of the bargain. They're making, I think, $2 billion off of this deal, over this 5-year deal they have with Fox, which is absolutely insane. But, Fox has every right after that 5 years to just kick them to the curb if they don't, live up to the hype. If they don't live up to the expectations Fox has for them. And because of that, you really kind of have to make SmackDown your top priority. And I know, the formula for wrestling over the past, 20, 25 years is Raw and SmackDown, at the end of the day, have just been advertisements. That's pretty much all they've been. They've been, weekly advertisements that have aired on cable television, and they're advertising the pay-per-view. The pay-per-view was always the be-all, end-all. But with the birth of the WWE Network, that's kind of changed things to the point where, especially since, people are subscribed to the network and your subscribers keep growing and growing, pay-per-views and marketing for pay-per-views has changed drastically. WWE doesn't really feel like they need to, promote their pay-per-views to the point where it doesn't matter if people aren't going to buy these. They have the network anyway. They're still going to watch them. So that's kind of the attitude they've had going forward. And now that the network is really kind of not your biggest revenue stream, SmackDown is. So because of that, they're really going to have to put all their eggs in the SmackDown basket. And that is not to say they can't just disregard Raw and they can't disregard their own network. They need to keep that network afloat because God forbid something happens, you need to have a big support, like a big support system. And in my opinion, that's where the network comes in. If anything were to happen, if shit were to hit the fan, and for some weird reason, Raw and SmackDown don't have a home on cable television, you have your network as the thing to fall back on. But people always say oh, we should put Raw and SmackDown on the network. And as much as I would love to do that, that's just, it makes no sense. If you're a company that can get, your programming on television, you want these, broadcast companies to invest. So because of that, you need to have SmackDown as your A show, your top priority, and you need to make sure SmackDown is delivering every single week. I mean, how many times, even today, even with two brands, even though their idea of the brand split to get SmackDown higher ratings, in a sense it worked, but not really. I mean, there's still, record low ratings coming in for Raw and SmackDown. And my thing is, watching Raw and SmackDown at this point with the way they book their pay-per-views and the way they book their storylines, you really don't need to watch Raw and SmackDown. It's just torture we put ourselves through just because we're diehard fans. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you could just watch the pay-per-views and get pretty much all the information and all the satisfaction from WWE programming that you could possibly get. So with that in mind, you really need to focus on making SmackDown not only a, your A show, but a legitimate show every single week that people are going to want to tune into. Now, I understand it's going on Friday at 8 o'clock, and I've heard that they want to build it to 3 hours, but I don't see how they're going to do that, because if you want to add on an hour and go from 8 to 11, you're going to run into trouble there because Fox News is going to be on at 10 p.m. So then they're not going to change their news for WWE SmackDown. And you could argue, well, you can tack on an hour in the beginning and go 7 to 10. But to me, that just seems so awkward. 7 o'clock is not really a prime time slot on television, and that just seems like a really awkward time to start, a weekly television program at 7 p.m. It just seems really, really weird. And you could argue that Friday is kind of, one of the lower rated days of the week. And it is, you'd want, programming on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, because Friday is usually a day where people go out and shit like that. So usually Fridays aren't the hottest days, but I mean, WWE has an opportunity to make, Friday nights wrestling nights. You know what I mean? Now, sure, everyone's going to go out on Friday from time to time. But, you have the opportunity to kind of make something new out of this, kind of reinvent yourself, reinvent your programming, maybe create another little bit of a boom period or a little bit of a glory day where, you're live on Fox at 5, on Friday at 8 p.m. and, everyone's watching wrestling again. Now, that's just me being optimistic and maybe me hoping for the best. But in order to, get that larger audience, to get that, maybe more casual fans that will then in turn become diehard fans, you have to make sure SmackDown is booming every single week. And I think the best way to do that is to do two things. One, you really need to make sure you have a marquee, not even just a marquee main event every single week, but a marquee match. You have to have at least one match on SmackDown every single week that is great. You need a great match, whether it's, just a singles match or maybe like a big 6-man tag or something like that. Like a prime example, like this past week's SmackDown, you had that New Day match versus The Miz, Cesaro, and Sheamus. That was a great match, one of the best matches SmackDown's seen in a while. If you advertise something like that and deliver with a really, really fun match to close out the show, or just in the middle of the show have like a really long match that can hook people in and just do pure wrestling, that will get over. And then you can do all your different angles. Save the big angles for SmackDown. Do all that. You need to blow off kind of your big angles for SmackDown. In a sense, pay-per-views. Usually that was the blow off to everything. But, you can kind of use SmackDown to advertise your pay-per-views, but then do something on your pay-per-view and something on Raw to advertise SmackDown. More so your pay-per-views, because probably more people are going to watch that than Raw. But, maybe you could do a little angle on your pay-per-view that could run into SmackDown and kind of have a little bit of a circle going on here. At the end of the day, Raw, the flagship show of WWE, is kind of falling to the wayside here. It's staying on USA, sure, and, they kind of got a little bit of a deal out of USA for that one. But, Raw, at the end of the day, it's just going to be 3 hours of stuff. Raw is kind of meaningless at this point. You still need to advertise the network to get, a larger fan base. And in turn, if they book SmackDown correctly and they book it to be a great show that has a lot of people on Fox just tuning in every single week, you're going to grow in subscriptions because they're going to say, wow, I sure have been missing out on this World Wrestling Entertainment. Let me subscribe to their network so I can watch more of their content. You know what I mean? So you got to make sure that you don't just slouch with your network and just put all your eggs in one basket. That's crucial. Now, my other thing that I really want to think about is the nature of the brand split. Now, I really haven't been a big fan of this brand split. I really don't think it's necessary, especially when your roster is relatively thin. Back in 2002 when they initially did it, the rosters were just stacked with talent that you really couldn't handle it all, so you had to divide it up into two. But this time, I really think you can get away with it. And with SmackDown kind of needing every single person at this point, you can kind of do away with the brand extension. I mean, I'm sure Fox is going to want all the stars. They're going to want everyone on there. So you can do away with the brand split, have all your guys on Raw. There's 3 hours of television to fill on Raw. People are going to get chances to shine if you do away with the brand split. You don't have to put every single person on Raw every single week. And that's another thing you can do with SmackDown. You can kind of book it kind of like how they book NXT, where not every single person is on every single show. Now, I'm sure they're going to want a core set of guys. You can pick, 5 or 6 or 7 guys and girls that are going to be on every single SmackDown because they're your marquee stars, they're the people you want to build the company around. That's fine. I'm sure they're going to want Roman Reigns on every show, and they're going to want Charlotte on every show, and Seth Rollins, and guys like that. In AJ Styles, sure, Daniel Bryan, maybe even Samoa Joe, people like that. Sasha Banks. Those people can be on the show every single week. Fine. But then you can do mid-card angles with people we don't see every single week. Keep the show fresh, keep the show exciting, and less is more in wrestling. The best show WWE has right now is NXT. I just wish that sometimes they would take kind of what works in NXT and do it on the main roster. And you could argue, oh, well, it's different. Yeah, sure. But I think, with 2 hours, you can kind of expand it to not to the point where it's like, only you have like 3 or 4 matches and stuff like that, like NXT does. But I think you can kind of stagger your talent all throughout the month to the point where not everyone is showing up every single week on SmackDown. You can keep the audience coming back for more. And again, keep your core set of guys that you build the company around. Yeah, they can be on the show every single week because those are the people fans really want to see. But then you can throw in different guys every single week to keep the show fresh. Because what's the worst thing about Raw and SmackDown is you have the same talent every single time, and they're kind of just, in like rotating circles, just feuding with each other for no real purpose. So once you kind of, strip away your roster a little bit, keep 7 or 8 guys on the show that will be there every single week doing their thing, you can build up other feuds with other stars, and they can get over in their own way because they'll have feuds that mean something, and they won't be on the show every week. They won't be overexposed. Why is Brock Lesnar such a big deal? Because he hasn't been killed by WWE booking. You know what I mean? So I think this is a key. This is a great way to keep things fresh, to keep people interested in the product, and to make sure there isn't any sort of burnout that, people stop watching SmackDown, 6 months after it starts airing on Fox. So to me, that's, the best step to take in terms of, where to take SmackDown and making it the A show and making it your flagship show. And the only other thing I wanted to talk about was the potential. I just heard rumors of them, wanting to, major networks like Fox broadcasting things like WrestleMania. And to me, business-wise, this seems like a great decision. Like, how much money does WWE make off of WrestleMania? They make so much money, and they could make just a bunch more money if they had a major network like Fox, giving them $1 billion to showcase WrestleMania. But the thing is, as much as great as it is for business, I'm not a business oriented person. I'm not, I would be a horrible CEO because I don't think with my brain. I think with my goddamn heart, and my heart is telling me I don't want to see WrestleMania on a network, a national broadcast television. I want to see it on the WWE Network, free of advertisement, free of commercials, free of all this. When I say free of advertisement, WWE always is going to shove something down my throat, but you know what I mean. I don't want to see any commercials. I don't want to see any things like that. But, at the end of the day, they're kind of, who am I to judge at this point? They're making money, and at the end of the day, that's what the wrestling business is all about. Isn't it not? So, I can't fault them too much if they want to take the deal. It seems like a no-brainer if you ask me, if you're running this company. But, it's going to come at a little bit of a price. And, it might be a little bit more of a commercialized WrestleMania. But at the end of the day, I guess that's a price we have to pay for a company that's doing exponentially well. So that's it for me. My name is jackpot 8704, and I will see all of you guys later.